Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're not. We're going to go over just pistol drawing and how to do that with a duty holster specifically. It's going to be about a beginner to intermediate skill. It's important to get this down very early on because if you learn the wrong technique to begin with, you're going to spend a lot more time unlearning that wrong technique and learning the new one. For whatever it's worth, it takes about 35 repetitions of a simple action to start to notice a difference, and 100 or more than that to have a notable difference that you're going to be able to replicate at a later point without practice. So, getting the correct repetitions of how to draw your weapon are very important. So, we're going to go over a 3-step method that is very digestible and accessible for a lot of shooters. And we're going to condense that down to 2 steps and down to 1 step. Theoretically, if you do these, this is the same thing that I do in my defensive courses and entry courses, so kind of get a little bit of a pre-drill here. You should have a notable increase in your draw speed and efficiency. Now, it's important to note this is also in a defensive discipline, not a competitive discipline. They have a different draw stroke. If you're doing concealed carry, there's going to be a slight variation in the draw stroke, specifically the first step. So be aware of that. This is a defensive discipline. This is the things that we consider in defensive situations. We're not going to go over a weapon transition either, so that's your jam. That's probably going to be a later date. Anyway, let's get started with step 1. Alright, so let's do the setup for step 1. You need to have your holster on you wherever it is that you are going to carry. Your weapon needs to be completely cleared. There needs to be no ammunition on you or in the weapon at all. You need to avoid, sitting around through the wall and hitting your neighbor's dog, right? So, once you have done that, go ahead and secure your weapon in your holster. Be sure that you're aware of the locking mechanisms on your specific holster. For my examples, I'm going to be using Safariland level 2 and level 3 holsters. All level 2 and level 3 means is they have some form of retention in place. There is a level 1 holster that is just friction fit, meaning you can just pull and it releases. Level 2 generally has a latch. In my case, it is a thumb latch. And level 3 has 2 forms of active retention. There's usually going to be a strap over the top that has to be pushed out of the way, and that thumb latch as well. So whenever you're set up, you have your pistol in the holster on your hip. Pistol is completely clear. Your ready position, just find something on a wall, maybe like a light switch, or if you're watching a movie, you're going to identify something in the movie. Whatever it is that works for you. You've identified your threat. You're focused on that threat. Go very slow at first. The first thing you're going to do is with your dominant hand, you're going to grab onto that pistol. You want to get your proper grip at this step. If you get a bad grip, reset. You need to ingrain that to get the proper grip during step 1. You're also going to be releasing any form of retention that you have, be it level 2 or level 3 holsters. This is the step that you're releasing those forms of retention. Your support hand is just going to get up and out of the way. A lot of people move their hand to about their belly button area. Some people move it to about their chest area or sternum. It's whatever works for you. Generally, moving it to your chest is the idea that you're going to defend with that offhand. Maybe you're pushing somebody away. Maybe you're pushing your hand out to say stop, whatever the case is. If you want to teach yourself to do the lower abdominal support hand, that means you're going to have more efficiency. Your hand is already going to be there when the weapon comes out of the holster. Theoretically, it makes you a little bit faster, but it really depends on whichever one you want to learn. Personally, you shouldn't be grabbing on your weapon unless you are planning to use your weapon. So I would recommend dropping that hand down to your lower abdominal or your belly button area. So again, to replace that, step 1, your dominant hand is going to move up and on top of the grip of your weapon. You are going to establish a proper grip. You are going to release any forms of retention. Your support hand is going to about your abdominal region or your sternum and chest, whichever you prefer. And they are just going to wait there. Do a couple of iterations of this. Simply just say step 1 out loud and then move into that step 1 step. So you'll just do step 1, step 1, step 1. Do it slow. As we start to progress through the steps, you're going to do them all a little bit faster. On to step 2. All right, on to step 2. We already have our hand on our weapon. We already have our support hand ready to meet or receive that weapon. All you're going to do is, with a very direct upward movement, make sure you're not pulling away from your hip. It needs to be directly up and out of the holster. You're going to pull up. As soon as that muzzle clears your holster, you're going to pivot it towards that threat. I personally like to teach people that there's a lightsaber or a laser beam coming out of the muzzle. You need to imagine that that laser beam is pressed onto your target during the entire draw. Now, this can be a little bit controversial, right? Some people are like, oh, well, I'm not necessarily ready to shoot. No, in defensive discipline, you shouldn't be drawing your pistol unless you've already planned to shoot, right? You've already made that decision. If you're not trying to shoot anybody, what the fuck are you grabbing your pistol for? So, as soon as that weapon clears the holster, you're going to pivot and point it towards that threat. If you need to shoot, you can, but you need to weigh the options of necessity to shoot with the possibility of missing. So that's going to be based on your own skill level. There are principles that we look into to increase that probability. That's something that you have to learn. So, directly up out of that holster, pivot towards your threat as if you're pointing that lightsaber or laser on your threat from that position. And you are just going to meet that right hand to the left hand, rolling that left hand into the grip position. So, from this point, we can actually start to engage. That is all we're going to do for step 2. All right, step 3, we are in the compressed position. We have both hands on the weapon. We can already start to shoot if we need to. We have natural point of aim. We are target focused. In theory, that big laser pointer or lightsaber coming out of our muzzle is on that target already. All we're going to do for step 3 is press out from that compressed position towards the target, and that sight is going to fall under our eye, whichever dominant eye you have. Note during this time, you're not going to be moving your head all around. You're not going to be looking like a wee little wobble that won't fall down or a bobblehead trying to find your sights. In order to get a proper repetition of step 3, the weapon appears within your target focus sighting. Note, controversial point here, some people teach front sight focus still. That was a good method when it was a thing. It is no longer a standardized method. It is an outdated method. You need to know that your threat is still a threat before you pull that trigger. Again, defensive discipline. If you can't focus on your threat because you're too busy looking at a big front sight post, you're going to have a hard time. It's like, oh, my target was all blurry, Your Honor, or jury. I couldn't quite tell, but I sure saw that front sight. Well, good luck in prison. Point being, step 3, going to press out from that compressed position. The weapon is going to be trained on that potential threat. We can shoot, but again, it's a cost-benefit analysis. We're going to see, can we make that shot and it actually hit the target? So while you're pressing out, you can shoot, you can shoot, you can shoot, you can shoot, and the sight appears within your vision. And now you should have the opportune grip, the opportune stance, opportune accuracy and sight alignment, and you're going to take that shot whenever you feel necessary. All right, so we've gone through step 1, step 2, and step 3 about drawing your pistol. Step 1, you're going to get proper grip. You're going to get your support hand out of the way. You're going to release any locking mechanism. Step 2, you're going to bring that weapon up and out of the holster, pivot, pointing towards your threat. You're going to bring it up to your support hand, but at this point you can shoot, depending on if you believe you can make the hit, and if it's still necessary. Step 3, you're going to press that weapon out from compression up into your cone of vision. It is going to meet your line of sight onto that threat, where you are just looking through the sights naturally. You're not going to be bobbing your head around. During all these iterations, you should be able to say out loud, step 1, perform those actions. Step 2, perform those actions. Step 3, perform those actions. Do them slowly. You are not in a race for time. You are getting practice and iterations in. As I said earlier, it's between 35 and 50 just for basic, notable changes in your performance. So do them slowly, do them correctly. You can work on speed at a later time. What we're going to do now is we're going to combine step 1 and 2. So whenever you say step 1 from this point forward, you're going to be doing both step 1 and 2 that you were doing a moment ago. When you say step 1 out loud, what you're going to do, bring your primary hand up to that weapon, establish your proper grip, release any locking mechanisms that you have in your way. You're going to bring your support hand up to that support position, be it your sternum or your abdomen. And you are going to release from the holster, pulling directly straight upwards, pivoting towards your threat, and meeting your weapon into that compressed position. That is going to be the new step 1. Step 2 from this point on is just going to be pressing out from that compressed position towards your threat with target focus, where the sights just appear in your cone of vision. No change to the previous step 3, except it is now step 2. All right, congratulations, pat on the back, you made it this far. You have now combined step 1 and 2 into just step 1. 3 has remained the same. You have done a few iterations to establish this consistency. Now, instead of saying step 1, step 2 and performing, we are just going to say up. Whenever you are ready, slowly, you're going to perform all of those step iterations. Just to follow through with me if you want. Establish proper grip on your weapon. Release any latches or securing mechanisms on your holster. Get your support hand out of the way. You're going to pull directly up and out of your holster, pivoting towards your threat, pointing at it on your way up. You are going to meet your support hand in front of your body in a compressed position. From here, you can press out towards your target, shooting at any point that you deem necessary, that you are ready to take that shot. Eventually, that sight will appear under your eye where you can establish a good sight alignment. Maybe if you have a dot, you can see the dot on that target, whatever the case is. At this point, you are pushing through all these steps. What you really need to do is do a lot of iterations of this back to back. Again, about 35 iterations of a very simplistic action for you to have a notable difference. It's going to be more like 50 or so. If you really want to commit this to a very high level of knowledge and capability, you need to do a lot of these iterations. I'm talking a couple hundred or so. One easy little trick or cheat to doing this is every single time you put that weapon on your hip at the beginning of your shift, at the beginning of your day, at the beginning of your range session, go ahead and do a couple of these draws. Now, if you are at a range session or a training session, it is good to do what's called a cold start. Basically, you don't do any warm-up. Just load that magazine, load that weapon, put it on your hip, find that target, and do that entire pistol draw drill. That gives you a base standard. That tells you where you're at. Generally speaking, these are generalistic numbers. It is always better to be faster when it's talking about drawing your weapon. From concealment, it's approximately 1.5 seconds that you should be aiming for. Again, faster is better. For duty holster style loadouts and stuff, you want to be aiming for about a sub-second pistol draw. Now, what I mean by that, you get stimulus, maybe a beep from a timer, or maybe you spray paint a gun or a knife on your target, and you look at the ground, and then as soon as you look up, identifying that gun, that is going to be your note of stimulus. From that moment that you get that stimulus to act, you are going to go through that pistol draw repetition, present that weapon, and take one shot. The time it takes you to take that first shot is your standard. So if you can do your duty holster draw in about 1 second or under 1 second ideally, you're going to be good to go for a good bit of time. There are people who are much faster than that, and damn good on them. They put that time into repetitions. But if you're not at 1 second, you need to be doing these more often than just every single time you put the weapon on your hip. Again, if you're going to do it from concealment, you need to aim for about 1.5 seconds because you do have to clear a garment or however you decide to conceal your weapon. It's about all I have on pistol draws. There's a lot that goes into this stuff. As always, watching a video and doing this in your home is not necessarily a substitute for an actual course or getting legitimate instruction. Reason being, you can be making mistakes that you don't even know you're making. A good instructor is going to be able to identify those and tell you what you're doing wrong. If you are doing an improper technique right now, and you are doing repetitions of an improper technique, you have to do a lot more repetitions of that basic action to unlearn your old one and learn the new one. So where it might be 35 to 50 for a new shooter right now, it's going to be more like 100 to 150 for you, because you're going to have to unlearn the old method and learn the new one, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. So this video is not a substitute. Make sure to go out and get trained, but by all means use it as a guideline. Any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you. Have a good day. Be safe. Get trained.